Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Train Station. As always, I am your host, A Train, and it's been a while since I've gotten on here and had a video out for you guys. Just haven't really had any ideas. I just recently got one, which I will talk about today, and I've been really busy. For those of you that follow me on social medias, you know that I was at WWE's pay-per-view The Royal Rumble recently, and on top of that there's been other things that I've been doing. But it just really comes down to I haven't really had ideas. I finally have some ideas brewing, and now I want to share them. All of you know the NFL draft is a very big favorite of mine. I've done a mock draft every year, and I wanted to come on here and do another one, but I wanted to do more than one this year since I feel like, I enjoy it so much. I'm going to give it. So today I'm going to do an NFL mock draft, but there's going to be no trades. I'm going to just go 1 through 31. There's usually 32, but the Dolphins had to forfeit their first round pick. So I'm going to go ahead and just go through 1 through 31. No trades, just straight up picking. And then later on, I'm going to come up with another one that'll include trades, and then probably one final one, and then, we'll go with that. But I feel like the mock drafts are always something that I like to do in my free time. So let's have some fun. Again, no trades, but we're just going to go ahead and do it, and we'll figure it out from there. Enter the draft. So, number one, the Chicago Bears. There's a lot of positions the Bears could go here, and typically, um, if I'm doing one with trades, there's a 90% chance that this pick probably gets traded, but because I'm not doing trades, there's a lot that the Bears need, as you can see here: wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, and linebacker. They just need all sorts of things, except quarterback. I think they have their quarterback of the future in Justin Fields. So for the Chicago Bears, with the number one overall pick, I'm going to give them the best interior lineman in the draft in Jalen Carter out of Georgia. I think he can be a nice plug-and-play guy for them. The Houston Texans. Now, there's a few things the Texans can go here. They do need defense, and they badly need a franchise quarterback. However, are they in the market to pick up a veteran like a Derek Carr or a Matt Ryan or potentially a guy like Aaron Rodgers, or do they draft one? I think they draft one. They take most people's consensus number one quarterback on the board in Bryce Young. He is my number two quarterback, and I will get to that when it comes up. So Bryce Young will be going to the Houston Texans. Number three, Arizona. They're probably going to go with best player on the board. You just lost J.J. Watt to retirement. Will Anderson is arguably the best player in this draft. Will Anderson out of Alabama to Arizona at number three. Colts, another team that needs a starting quarterback. Matt Ryan hasn't seemed to work out. Carson Wentz didn't seem to work out. Philip Rivers didn't seem to work out. Philip Rivers retired a few years back. Matt Ryan, so they desperately need a quarterback. Maybe they're in the market to potentially trade up when I do one with trades. Potentially they go for a guy like Derek Carr, again, Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo could be a really good spot in Indianapolis. But there are lots and lots of reports that the Colts are big fans of Will Levis out of Kentucky. Personally, I'm not a fan of Will Levis. I think Will Levis is one of the more overrated prospects in this entire draft, but they're going to go Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky. Seattle on the clock at 5. They get this pick from Denver, part of the Russell Wilson trade. They also could potentially go quarterback here. There's a lot of teams in the first round and for top 10 that really need quarterbacks, but I think they'll re-sign and they'll find a way to work with Geno Smith, and I think they boost the defense because Seattle loves defense. They're gonna go ahead and take the highly talented edge rusher out of Texas Tech in Tyree Wilson. Now the Lions, another team that could go quarterback here. Jared Goff played really well last year, so I don't think they do. defense is a major need for the Lions. Had one of the worst defenses in the entire league a year ago. And so they kind of need a defense to match what the output of their offense was doing. This pick came from the LA Rams, part of the Matthew Stafford trade. So a wonderful pick for the Rams to struggle with injuries the way they did. So Lions with the top 10 pick that way. And I know the Lions will go defense here. I don't think they go quarterback, even though I think with CJ Stroud still being on the board at 5, that's very, very tempting. CJ Stroud's my number 1 quarterback in this class. It's very, very tempting, but I think the Lions need to work on the back end a lot. They have Jeff Okudah, who's finally starting to come into his own at the corner position, but other than that, it's a lot of just not great the play. They could also go edge rusher, maybe a guy like Myles Murphy to pair with Aiden Hutchinson, and you'd have a good thing there. But I think they go corner. It has to be addressed. So they're going to go Devin Witherspoon, the corner out of Illinois. Was arguably the best corner in this draft. He's really increasing his stock quite a bit. Now the Raiders, another team that needs a quarterback. They said Derek Carr will be on the way out, whether that's by trade or by cutting him. I don't think anybody's going to trade for him because they're probably going to want too much. His value's not quite what they think it'll be, so I think they'll probably end up cutting him, which means they'll be in the quarterback market. And with that, the best quarterback in the draft and on the board, CJ Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State, goes to Vegas. Atlanta. They drafted Desmond Ridder a year ago. They still have Marcus Mariota. So quarterback maybe isn't quite the need that PFF says it is. They took last year in the first round, they took Drake London, so maybe not wide receiver. They also have Kyle Pitts, so they got some weapons there to work with. They definitely do need to work on their defense and their offensive line. The best player still available on the board for defensive line is Myles Murphy. He's going to go to Atlanta. Carolina. Now here's where it's tough because Carolina definitely needs a quarterback. Sam Darnold hasn't worked out. You had Baker Mayfield and you let him go. You had Cam Newton and you really haven't had a quarterback since Cam Newton left. Problem here is the top quarterbacks on the board have already gone, and I know draft experts are very, very high on Anthony Richardson due to his athleticism. Me personally, I've seen him play. I think he stinks. So you drafted Ikwe Equinamu or whatever his name is last year. Maybe you continue to build from the inside out. Without a quarterback on the board, though, it's really tough to see what they do. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that they continue to build the defense. And they go with a corner. You already have J.C. Horn. You could bring back Stephen Gilmore, but you could add another one as well and really make it great. Or you could go somewhere else. It's really tough to see what they're going to do with all the top quarterbacks. Maybe Anthony Richardson is the spot here. I don't really want to do it, but I just feel like their need for quarterback is going to force them to reach, especially if they don't trade up. So Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida, heads to the Carolina Panthers. I did not want to do that, but again, you can't really do anything much other than that. As far as the Eagles go, the rich get richer. The team in the Super Bowl gets a top 10 pick from the New Orleans Saints. And why I said the rich get richer, they don't really need anything. You have a great receiving core. You have your quarterback of the future in Jalen Hurts. You have a good offensive line. You have, a good secondary, good linebackers. You really don't need anything. So the rich get richer. This is also probably a spot where they might reach a little bit. And we're going to do that for the sake of this mock draft. They're going to go ahead and reach, and they're going to get a halfback. And they're going to get Bijan Robinson, the halfback out of Texas. They don't really need him, but they have a few guys that are probably going to end up being free agents. And so, that'll be a good spot for them, as that's kind of like their extra pick. So they'll just go ahead and take Bijan Robinson. 11 Tennessee. If you're going to continue to go with a Derrick Henry latent offense, you got to get a way to protect Derrick Henry so that he can continue to find the holes. They definitely need an offensive line. Plus, Taylor Lewan likely going to be a free agent. Tackles probably here. The best tackle in this draft to me is Peter Skronsky. Peter Skronsky, the tackle out of Northwestern, heads to Tennessee. Now, the next pick is the Houston Texans. They got this from that ridiculous Deshaun Watson trade, which allowed them to take lots and lots of picks from the Cleveland Browns. So this pick originally from Cleveland's is headed to the Houston Texans. I've seen a lot of mocks that say they might go wide receiver here. You just took your quarterback on the offensive line. Now I think you need to go with your quarterback on the defensive line. And I'm much higher on this guy than some are, but I think Andre Carter, the edge rusher out of Army, is very good. And just the way this has played out, it might be a little early to take him, but Andre Carter, the second from Army, goes number 12 to the Houston Texans, the Jets. Here's the real question for the Jets. Is Zach Wilson the guy? Because if Zach Wilson is the guy, then you don't need a quarterback. There's been rumors suggesting Aaron Rodgers could end up in New York. You know, maybe they go for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. You have the weapons, you have a decent offensive line, and you have a great defense in place. You know, what do the Jets do here? I don't think quarterback is the answer. I do think they end up getting a veteran guy like an Aaron Rodgers or potentially a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. So in this instance, I think they would probably trade back. They had 3 first-rounders last year, so they probably want to accumulate more picks. But again, this is a no-trade mock draft, so they're going to continue to just get stronger and stronger defensively. They're going to add one of the best corners in this draft in Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. Maybe I could have went offensive line there, but I just think that they got Sauce Gardner last year. You get Christian Gonzalez with him. You now have a nice corner pairing for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years with Christian Gonzalez and Sauce Gardner. The Patriots. Who knows what Bill Belichick is going to do? Bill Belichick is known for throwing curveballs. He always loves to accumulate later round picks. Again, when I do one with trades, this seems like another very likely trade down scenario. Patriots love trading down, but they need wide receiver help. Especially if they feel like Mac Jones is that guy. Give him as much help as possible so he can be that guy. They need a wide receiver. There's lots of good wide receivers in this draft, but it just feels like it's such a easy pick. Jordan Addison, the wide receiver from Pittsburgh who transferred to USC last year. So out of Pitt and USC, the wide receiver Jordan Addison, they need playmakers on every aspect of that offense. They have some decent tight ends, but they're kind of hurt and injury prone, so they just need a playmaker on the outside, especially with the guys they have now going into free agency. Green Bay. The story around Green Bay this offseason is, what are you doing with Aaron Rodgers? Is he staying? Is he going? Is he coming back? Are you trading him? Are you cutting him? What's going on with the Packers? We've seen what happens when he doesn't have the weapons necessarily he needs. But the Packers hardly ever take a first-round wide receiver. I think that continues here. They're going to continue to address other needs. They're going to take the Iowa edge rusher, Luca Van Ness, just to for the fact that they just don't draft first-round wide receivers. That's not going to change, even if they get rid of Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that adds another first-round pick, maybe not. But they don't get first-round wide receivers, so it's really going to probably make Aaron Rodgers be that much closer out the door. the Washington Redskins football team, Commanders, whatever you want to call them, at pick 16, another team that needs a quarterback that might go for a veteran guy. But again, there's not really a quarterback here worth taking. You have a really good defense in Chase Young and company. I think they need some playmakers to help scary Terry McLaurin. To me, I think the way this draft is played out, injuries might have hampered him, but to me, he's going to be the best wide receiver in this class. If you guys watched him the way I watched him, he is an outstanding player, by far the best wide receiver in this draft. Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State is going to Washington. Pittsburgh. This plays out perfectly for them. We know how they are. They're a run-first team. Mike Tomlin, no matter how bad the team is, always has them playing above standards. He hasn't had a losing season yet, and we've all expected that a lot. But he hasn't done that, so they are a run-first team, and being a run-first team, they're going to have to go offensive line. Now, I probably would have Peter Skoronski here, or maybe have them trade up for Peter Skoronski, but because he's not there, they're going to go with tackle Broderick Jones out of Georgia. Just a really, Paris Johnson Jr., another guy that could go there. But these tackles, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're kind of all over the place. And I think Paris Johnson is right up there too. He could easily be the pick. But they're going to go with Broderick Jones. Just depends on where they have them. Skoronski, Jones, Paris Johnson. The Lions are back up. Like I said, they need defense. They went corner with their first pick. This is their pick. They kind of exceeded expectations. And it's going to play out exactly into their hands. They're going to go with the defensive lineman, Bryan Bresee. Injuries kind of hampered him, so he falls down perfectly. I could see the Lions even taking Bresee at 6. So if they get him at 18, it's a steal. Tampa Bay, again, a team that needs a quarterback. They only have, with the Tom Brady retirement as of now, they currently only have Kyle Trask on the roster. So another team that's probably going to be looking for a quarterback. But there's really not one here worth taking, as you see Tanner McKee, Hendon Hooker. I think these two guys, Jake Haener and Clayton Tune, are going to be fantastic players, but it's too early to waste a first-round pick on them. The offensive line for the Bucs was horrendous. They could also go secondary here. And with the tackles being very, very good, I think you can wait on an offensive line. And they're going to go corner. They're going to go with the corner from South Carolina, Cam Smith, Joey Porter, as you see here. There's a lot of guys, even the ones taken, Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon. Depends on what teams feel like they want to do. Again, it's going to be like the tackles. Whoever's higher on the board is probably going to go. Seattle, we've seen that already. They took Tyree Wilson to address the defensive position. Now you have to work on the offensive line to protect Geno Smith. Or you could go wide receiver and help DK Metcalf out. But I think they go offensive line to help Geno Smith. Osiris Torrance out of Florida, the guard, one of the best interior guards in the draft, will fall number 20 to Seattle. You could even see him go higher if a team values the inside more than the outside. And as you see here, pick 21 originally to the Dolphins. They had to forfeit the pick. So the Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock, and I really don't know what to do for them because it feels like no matter how good their team is, they just always find a way to choke it away. But you have a great young quarterback in Justin Herbert. Why not give Justin Herbert another weapon? Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver out of TCU, who will probably go much higher. Ravens, another situation with the Ravens. What are you doing with Lamar Jackson? Had that injury at the end of the year. So how much does that affect how much he's going to make? He wants a Deshaun Watson type deal, which Deshaun Watson, $250 million guaranteed. Are the Ravens willing to do that, or are they willing to franchise tag him and then next year or the year after, okay, we're going to find our quarterback? Do you continue to build around him, or do you go, a different direction? And if you continue to build around Lamar Jackson, then you need weapons for Lamar Jackson. And for that reason, with them needing a weapon, there's a lot of guys that will go up or down. Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College, might go much higher. I could see Zay Flowers also ending up in New England instead of Jordan Addison, which in that case, then Quentin Johnson might go higher. And, another thing, it's a lot of who is on your board, who's higher, who's not. The Vikings, what a disappointment they were. What are you doing with Kirk Cousins? Because he plays well, but he only plays well at certain times of the day. Patrick Peterson's not getting any younger. You definitely need, defense. And I'm gonna go a bit of a shock here. They like their front seven is very good, but I feel like it could be stronger. So they're gonna go with Trenton Simpson, the linebacker out of Clemson. One of the better linebackers in a particularly mid to low linebacker class. Jags. Boy, did the Jags surprise everybody by making the playoffs after having back-to-back number one picks. You got your guy in Trevor Lawrence. You have your tailback in Travis Etienne. You need playmakers. Their wide receivers are okay. They spent a lot of money on guys like Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram is also a free agent. Do you re-sign him, or do you take your chances with one of the tight ends in the draft? And I think that's exactly what they do. They're going to go Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame. Best tight end in this class. You can line him up on the outside. Could be another wide receiver for them. The Giants could go running back here. What are you doing with Saquon Barkley? Do you franchise tag him? Do you pay him? He's had his injury concerns, and running backs after their 5-year rookie deal, they tend to fall off a little bit. Brian Daboll, though, you also have Daniel Jones, who looks like he earned his money. So you probably stick with Daniel Jones. Kenny Golladay has been a giant disappointment for them. They need weapons. They need weapons bad. So with that, I think you get him a weapon. You get the Giants one of the best receivers in this draft who will fall simply due to the nature of how the draft works. And you get him, Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver from Tennessee, to kind of be that number one guy going forward. Sterling Shepard's okay. They have a lot of okay receivers, but not really a true number one, especially since Kenny Golladay was paid to be that, but he isn't. The Cowboys, what do? You have Dak, who makes an insane amount of money. You have Ezekiel Elliott, who makes an insane amount of money, but has underperformed since he's made that money. Tony Pollard's a free agent. They do have Dan Quinn, and they do like, adding and bulking up the defense, but they like big, lengthy corner guys. Your offensive line's also been banged up. You went offensive line last year. What do you do if you're the Cowboys? It's hard to say what the Cowboys do here. But I think, and it's tough because there's only one running back worth taking in the first round, and he's already gone. And that was, the Texas running back who already went to the Eagles, Bijan Robinson at number 10, because they know if the Cowboys at third, their next pick's 31, so Bijan Robinson at 10 might be something to spite the Cowboys. Like when the Eagles needed a receiver and the Cowboys took CeeDee Lamb just for the heck of it. I think Jahmyr Gibbs might be an early second round. He might sneak into the first, early second guy, but Jahmyr Gibbs will be going to the Cowboys as they need something. And if Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't go to the Cowboys, there's another team you could look at, the Bills. Very disappointing season for them as well. They need a halfback bad. They need, they just need some sort of help. Their safeties are kind of getting old. So with that, I think I'm going to go defense. Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama, falls to Buffalo. A lot of Alabama guys will start going off the board now. It's just how Alabama is. The Bengals. The Bengals have been in a great spot. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow have been fantastic for them. But your offensive line is still ridiculously bad. You've had Joe Burrow getting sacked way too many times. You spent money into the offensive line and it still hasn't worked. So with the best tackle on the board still available, if he's available at 28, there's no doubt he's getting taken here. He might even go earlier, but Paris Johnson Jr., hometown guy, an Ohio State kid, Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a perfect fit. Now here's the Saints, who have a first round pick from the 49ers. I don't remember who the 49ers gave up so the Saints could have this, but the Saints will be here. I don't know if this is up, but yeah. So I don't know who the Saints are going to go with here. Jameis Winston still under contract. Maybe they go a guy like Tanner McGee, who could, sneak into the first round because of just so many teams needing quarterbacks. But I don't think they do. I think they go safety, Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M. The Chiefs, Travis Kelce isn't going to be around forever. They're definitely going to go tight end. To me, the second best tight end in this class, you see Luke Musgraves here. There's also Dalton Kincaid, etc., etc. I think Dalton Kincaid goes to the Chiefs at number 30, as I said. Travis Kelce's getting older and won't be around forever. So you start to draft his replacement. And Utah to Kansas City, not that far, both red and white. Again, the connection's kind of there. Eagles, again, the rich get richer. In the Super Bowl, you took Bijan Robinson earlier. You could go defensive line. They love their defensive line. But I think they continue to shore up, having the corners alongside Darius Slay. They're going to take Joey Porter Jr., the corner out of Penn State. And that is my first round mock draft. So Bears, Jalen Carter, Houston, Bryce Young, Arizona, Will Anderson, Colts, Will Levis, Seattle, Tyree Wilson, Lions, Devin Witherspoon, the Raiders, CJ Stroud, Atlanta, Myles Murphy, Carolina, Anthony Richardson, Eagles, Bijan Robinson, Peter Skronsky for Tennessee. For the second time, Houston Texans, Andre Carter II, which is one of my shocker picks in the first round. Christian Gonzalez to New York, Jordan Addison to New England, Lucas Van Ness to Green Bay, Jackson Smith and Jigba to Washington. He will likely fall to probably the second round due to injury, but whoever takes him will have an absolute stud. And if he's there at 16, you have to think that a guy like Terry McLaurin, who played with Jackson Smith and Jigba, if he's there at 16, he's on the phone. Hey, get me this man. Or even he could be taken at 29 with the Saints, assuming Chris Olave's there as well. Hey, get me this guy. So he might fall or rise depending on, how they feel. Broderick Jones to Pittsburgh, Detroit second pick, Brian Brzee. Cam Smith to Tampa, Osiris Torrance to Seattle with their second pick. Really jumping up on the edges here. Quentin Johnston to LA. I could see him going much higher than this. He could even be a top 10 pick, maybe even a top 15 pick as early as Atlanta at 8, New England at 14, Houston at 12 are all viable options as well. Zay Flowers, 22, again, another guy that could go higher, potentially. Houston at 12, New England at 14, Washington at 16, Green Bay at 15 if they finally decide to take a wide receiver. Trenton Simpson at 23 to Minnesota, Michael Mayer, Michael Mayer to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 24, Jalen Hyatt at 25, Jahmyr Gibbs at 26 to the Cowboys, Brian Branch at 27 to the Bills, Paris Johnson to the Bengals, Antonio Johnson to the Saints. That could very easily be an offensive guy. Dalton Kincaid to the Chiefs, if I explained. Travis Kelce's not getting any younger, and Joey Porter Jr. to the Eagles as the rich get richer. Bijan Robinson and Joey Porter would be an absolute stud first round for the Eagles, who, like I said, the rich get richer, already in the Super Bowl. If they can land both of those guys, it would be incredible. Bijan Robinson, and kind of a higher, he'll go probably somewhere here late first round, but running backs are such a dime a dozen nowadays that it's very rare that you see one getting taken so highly. But I think a guy like Bijan Robinson, who can do so much for an offense when all of your guys are likely to go to free agency, is an investment that you can afford to take if you're the Eagles, especially with another first round pick later on. If Bijan Robinson ends up to a team like the Cowboys or the Bills, then maybe they go for a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs with that 31st pick. But again, the Eagles, the rich get richer. There's so much that they can do. So, there's a few shocks that I threw in here. Lucas Van Ness, probably the earliest he will go is 15, but I don't see him sliding out of the first round. Bryan Bresee, 18. I see that the latest he goes, again, the earliest he could go is 6 to the Lions, maybe 5 to Carolina or to Seattle. And maybe if some trades go on, he goes. But I think this is the farthest he drops. Cam Smith, Devin Witherspoon. Cam Smith could go 6. Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, all those guys, just depending on which teams have what corner on the board is their highest, depends on how all that plays out. Osiris Terrence, another guy that's just very, very good. Probably the best guard in this draft. So he either goes here or he goes much higher, maybe 11 to Tennessee if they value the inside more than the outside. Paris Johnson Jr., if he drops to 28, Cincinnati will be very, very happy. But again, he could easily go in the 5 to 16 range. And then Joey Porter is with Devin Witherspoon and Cam Smith and all those guys. So it's just going to be, it's going to depend. And then when I do a mock draft with trades, it's going to change a lot of where these guys go, quarterbacks especially. As I explain why these teams are trading up or why these teams aren't going quarterback, but for now, based solely off not trading, not picking up Aaron Rodgers or Jimmy Garoppolo or anything like that. That is how it is. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys for the next mock draft with trades. Also in the works, I'm hoping I might have a very, very special big-time guest on the show very, very soon. I'm just waiting to hear back on a couple of things to make it all happen. And if that happens, it would be absolutely massive to the brand because they are just such a wonderful, lovely person. So I'm hoping that everything gets checked out here shortly. Until then, keep hanging out, keep listening, keep watching, and I will see you guys for the next mock draft with trades. Peace.